Hello, you're watching the Supply Chain Digital Show brought to you by Supply Chain Digital Magazine, Procurement Magazine, and BizClick. My name's Neil Perry, I'm BizClick's managing editor, and I am standing in today for Supply Chain Digital editor Sean Ashcroft, who is stateside this week. He's in Dallas, an event being held by SAP. He is definitely the lucky one this week. So you have to make do with me for today. In the show, we'll bring you all the latest news, analysis, and opinions from the world of supply chain every 2 weeks, right here on LinkedIn, YouTube, and of course, all the usual digital platforms too. So wherever you are, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, you're very welcome to join us. At this point, it's my pleasure, as ever, to welcome Procurement Magazine's editor, Ilkan Sevin. Welcome, Ilkan. How are you?
Hello, Daniel. I'm fine, thank you. How are you doing today?
Yeah, well, good, thank you. I'm slightly nervous because I'm concerned my dog is going to try and interrupt us partway through the show today. So if he does, I will ask him his opinions on the latest supply chain issues, but I doubt he'll have much to add to the conversation. So let's do a quick reminder at this point for all of you watching. Please do say hello just by posting in the comment section underneath. And also do vote in our poll as well. And on that note, Ilkan, what is our poll this week?
Thanks, Neil. So our poll for this week is, should super wealthy sea shipping companies be subject to a windfall tax? And the options are yes and no.
That's a deep one, isn't it? We're almost getting political, which is a slightly dangerous place to go. But I don't know. What are my thoughts on that one? It's a tough one, really, isn't it? I think it's because the sums of money that go around in sea shipping are, well, they're phenomenal, aren't they? When you look at them, aren't they? Earlier this year, the world's largest shipping line, Maersk, said it expects to report total earnings for 2022. I think it was around 19.8 billion, which is, it's an extraordinary amount of money. But if we put that into context, 19.8 billion, that's enough money to put them 118th position in the GDP league table. I did look that up. I didn't just know that off the top of my head. And I also looked this up as well, so I'm not just showing off. It puts them between Georgia, who have, I think it's 18.89 billion, there or thereabouts, and Mali on 19.33 billion in the league table. And there's 92 countries in the world whose GDP is less than their projected earnings for this year. So I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I think those are a few facts just to chew over. So we'll be sharing the results of that poll at the end of the show. So again, if you keep an eye on that for us. But there's loads to talk about before then. So let's start by taking a look at the latest supply chain and procurement news. So let's start with the supply chain news today. Let's look at the transport benchmark report that's been revealing inaction on fossil fuels. You see it up on screen there, and do check that out on the website as well. Major new logistics study. It's highlighted the urgent need for supply chain to collaborate on developing and scaling sustainable alternatives to fossil fuels. The report's by the World Benchmarking Alliance, whose aim is to build a movement to measure and incentivize business impact around a sustainable future. In total, the report looks at 25 airlines, 9 rail companies, 6 road companies, 17 shipping companies, and 33 multimodal companies. So it's pretty exhaustive. Transport has the highest reliance on fossil fuels, it says, with more than 90% of transport energy coming from crude oil-derived products. Yet just 7% of companies assessed have committed to phasing out use of fossil fuels. So plenty to get your teeth into with that one there. Second story I want to look at for supply chain, and that's managing risk crucial. That's the Gartner Supply Chain Symposium, a US government advisory panel comprising of major businesses, including Walmart, General Motors, and Intel. They want to limit public access to import data. Businesses say the move will help the US keep pace with trade volumes that have almost quintupled in the last 3 decades. Greenpeace is warning, though, that keeping shipping manifests secret will make ESG supply chain violations, such as anti-slavery, untraceable in imports. And also, it flies in the face of the Uyghur Forced Labour Prevention Act signed into law by President Biden at the end of last year to help prevent US importing goods from China that are the result of goods made by the oppressed Uyghur people of China. So there's plenty more on the website to look at as well. But moving on for supply chain to procurement, what's stood out for you over the past fortnight, Ilkan?
Perfect. Thank you, Neil. So the story I'd like to discuss concerns an article from Procurement magazine entitled "Adapting Procurement to Threats from Economy and Ecology." The piece took its cue, from the Mississippi River crisis, which happened a couple of weeks ago. And it was an event which it was brought about due to droughts in the American Midwest, leading to the lowest river water levels in a decade. This, of course, led to a massive obstruction of key supply routes, holding up around 150 vessels and 2,250 barges, effectively cutting off a major supply chain artery and causing an estimated $20 billion worth of damage. That's billion with a B. And the event highlights the, I'm sorry to say, ever-growing pressures on supply chains and the associated importance of the procurement function. Where the main threats to supply chain and procurement were once considered to be primarily economic, at least since the Industrial Revolution, the ecological threat is now unequivocally increasing and needs to be factored into supply chain and procurement considerations all across the board and all across the globe. So back to you.
Lovely. Well, keep your comments coming in just onto the side. We've got some coming through, which we'll get through to in just a moment. We'll just take a short break, and then we'll be back with your comments and the poll results as well.
Five years in this role, really pulling together the digital strategy for our source to contract process. I'm Sander Vorn. I work for Shell. I'm the source to contract process, assurance, and digital design manager globally for our procurement organization. At Shell, I make sure that our procurement process is as lean and efficient as possible, and that we have a strong assurance program in place to make sure that we are compliant with all the standards we want to comply and need to comply with. The most important thing that SAP Ariba has done for Shell in the source to contract process is by digitalizing this end-to-end. We get structured data on each and every step, where we can enable them data mining or process mining to further optimize that process and automate steps. At Shell, SAP Ariba helps us with our sustainability goals, or if you think of our strategy, powering progress. It enables us to track by supplier their sustainability performance, which in turn helps us to select the suppliers that we want to do business with and further develop and collaborate on that performance throughout the life of the contract.
Hello, welcome back. Do remember, if there's any of the stories that we were discussing earlier in the show that you want to take a look at, they're all listed in the comments. So do take a look. There's plenty there to take a look at over the last 2 weeks. Keep voting in the poll as well. That will go through the results of that at the end. So before we get on to all of that, the November issues of Supply Chain Digital and Procurement magazines, they are hot off the virtual digital press. Let's take a look at some of the engaging and insightful things we've got in there. Ilkan, why don't you start us off? Anything in Procurement magazine that you'd want to flag up to everybody?
Yes, Neil, thanks. So the article I'd like to discuss is headlined, "The Future of Procurement Lies in Digital Adoption." It concerns a recent Globality and ProcureTech survey on the future of procurement, which gathered insights from around 200 leaders across several sectors and company sizes, and found that over the next 3 years, more aggressive and advanced digital transformation will be a top priority. The results of the survey show that digital transformation and new ways of working will reshape procurement, with 90% of respondents expecting a relative or significant change in their operating model, and 63% saying that the role of procurement itself will be changed for the better by leveraging state-of-the-art technologies. The theme is a recurring one, but it's one that needs to be hammered home. Those industries, and with mounting pressures from both economy and ecology, as I pointed out, especially the procurement industry, that fail to digitalize their processes, are almost certain to fail. Globality's Chief Revenue Officer, Keith Hausman, said, and I quote, "The numbers paint a clear picture. The future of procurement lies in successfully taking digitalization to the next level, with the companies who are outperforming their peers having either adopted cutting-edge, best-of-breed digital solutions already or planning to do so in the immediate future." He also added that the technophobia associated with adopting digital technology into the fabric of procurement was a misplaced one at best, and that AI is not replacing people, but he says eliminating mundane tasks so that people can do their work more effectively and prioritize strategic initiatives that add real value to the wider business. In other words, such conceived fears relating to digital adoption need to be overcome so that digital technologies such as AI and machine learning can take procurement to the next level. And what about you, Neil? What feature caught your attention this month?
Well, I'm actually going to pick out two things. Am I allowed to do that? I know we normally do one, but I'm going to do two. I'm hosting today, so I can do what I like. I will pick out what was on the cover, actually, you saw a moment ago, and that's Scott Schwartz from Royal Philips, which was an interview I had the pleasure of doing, talking about how they try to make sure that their strategic partners are very much on board and part of the process when it comes to product development, and getting them on board much earlier to make sure they play an active role in what they're producing. But there was one story that Scott mentioned to me during the interview, and that was how he was actually at a medical appointment, and they were using some of the med tech that they've produced. So he was sitting in front of essentially one of their end users, one of the technicians, and the technician didn't know who he was, didn't know his link to the company. And so he had that absolute pleasure of being able to talk to this technician about the technology, about what worked, what didn't work. And it was the surprise he found, and it's all in the article, was how a lot of the metrics they would normally think were important, such as the speed of the machine, the quality of the images, the metrics that the business would always measure, were different to the things that were important to the technician. It would be the ergonomics, where things were placed, the buttons, the smaller things, and that was absolutely fascinating. And that's, although I say so myself, I think that's well worth picking up. But other features, as I said, I had two. The other one I'd mention would be from November Supply Chain, and that's about the circular supply chain. Speaking at BizClick Sustainability Alive event earlier this year, Stephen Jameson, that's Global Head of Circular Economy Solutions at SAP, he addressed significant sustainability challenges that lie ahead here. One quote from him, you'll see in there: "We're using more resources than the planet can sustainably provide," which is, I think, is an incredibly powerful quote. He adds that shifting to a circular economy means a radical change in how products and materials are designed, and that we need new policies, new infrastructure, and business ecosystems as well. He also said we need critical interventions to drive solutions, including things like eliminating waste, prevent destruction of nature, circulating materials and products to keep them in use for as long as possible, having end-to-end insights so consumer decisions are tied to ultimate land use impact. That was just one part of our sustainability event. Just over a month ago now. I had the pleasure of hosting stage 2 on that. And there were so many fascinating conversations, and so many of them were linked to supply chain and procurement, because it's such an integral part of it all. But shall we move on to the poll now? Let's see how we've got on with that. Have we had any results through as yet, Ilkan? Let me have a look. I don't think we've had those through yet.
We have.
We do. Yes, we do. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong place. After you. That's why you do that bit and I do this bit.
No problem at all. Just click your button. Just to remind our viewers of what the question was, it was, should super wealthy shipping companies be subjected to windfall tax? And the results are only 29% actually said no, and an overwhelming 71% of people that were asked for yes, that they should be subject to this windfall tax. So what do you make of that, Neil? Controversial?
How long have we got? Well, it is a controversial subject matter. Any of these windfall taxes affecting any form of business that is doing well, you can very quickly stray into political territory here, can't you? About the needs for it. I think if we try and avoid the pros and cons of it actually happening or not, and actually look at how it could potentially be delivered, I think whether it's high performing shipping, whether it's energy, I think all you can ask for is making sure that everyone has a seat in the table to make sure it's fair and reasonable. The 71% there of our viewers voting yes, that says something in itself, I think. But it's definitely a political hot potato, this, because I think everyone knows there needs to be more money in the kitty to make all of these things work, but it's a case of how we actually go about getting them. And I guess the other question might be, where does the tax actually come from? Because is there a risk of, if the tax is UK based, is it going to push maybe some businesses away from the UK, concerned about losing some of their using some of their money as a result of that? So there's an awful lot to it. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, I think so. Again, I mean, I agree that it's definitely a controversial issue, and it depends, of course, on which side of the argument that you're standing on, as with all of these things. However, it can definitely be a deterrent to major shipping companies investing in certain regions, and it would dissuade them, and it could have an adverse effect on the economy, of course. But that's only one side of the picture, and it may take too long to try to go through the entire thing. So I'll just stop there.
Yeah, I think we've both very carefully positioned ourselves on the fence there. I think that's probably the safest place to be on that one. Excellent. Well, that is all we took time for this episode. Ilkan, thanks ever so much for your company. We do hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you for everyone who interacted and took part in the poll as well. And do remember, the show is available to watch on demand as well. So do please share with any colleagues, anyone you think might be interested in joining us in supply chain and procurement. Big thanks to you, Ilkan. Thanks ever so much for your time today. Big thanks to Ernest, who's been pressing the buttons with the video production team behind the scenes, Justin and the design team for their, as ever, great looking magazines, and Kaylee and the marketing team too. This has been a Big Click, Biz Click production, and we'll see you next time.